Good morning, everybody, all those who are here in person in the library of the Historic Archive of La Biennale di Venezia. Allow me to mention a friend of ours, Andrea Purgatori, who is no longer with us. We all know how much he has worked for cinema as a script writer and as the representative of cinema in SIAE, and then an institutional role, a journalist, a writer. Needless to say that we will miss him. We took part in the latest Giornata degli Autori, an award to Cicutto Maselli, for the first time awarded by the different components of the International Film Festival of La Biennale di Venezia, but also by the representative of the authors who take part in the Venice Film Festival. I will be very short because, as you know, Alberto has a lot of things to say, so I will leave the time for him to do so. Lido, besides ensuring a very rich event with the titles coming from all over the world, despite the difficulties related to the strike of scriptwriters and actors in the US, and to the weather problems in Venice. We hope there will be a pause in Venice. We are celebrating the 80th anniversary of the Venice Film Festival. We are celebrating every year. Last year it was the 90th anniversary from its first edition. We have the 80th edition this year. We are not afraid of what is taking place in terms of changes, technological changes, changes in language. We are facing, as we have always done, a film festival that, like the other arts in the Biennale, is able to live in the historic times it is crossing. Let us think of the latest 4 years, from COVID to the dramatic emergencies we had to face because of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, protests and repression in Iran for human rights and female freedom, directors who were kept silence, the Taliban's against in Afghanistan. Well, in these last 4 years, the Venice Film Festival has been able to give responses and solutions, not solutions perhaps, but responses facing important themes. And an institution like La Biennale di Venezia cannot ignore them. It has, in turn, the obligation to document what is happening and to support the artists, as we did with artists from Ukraine and Afghanistan. Our commitment for carbon neutrality remains. Weather distractions, storms and hail of these days are showing the consequences of climate change. Last year, all events during the film festivals within the Venice Biennale were certified carbon neutral. We continue on the same path. Already in 2020, we started working with the first initiative during COVID. Despite COVID, it was a testing, an important test for us. Lido has important new solutions on the left of the casino. You will see a construction that is extremely useful. It has a lift inside, but it also allows for more safety and security with emergency exits. La Perla room, La Perla Theater, has been totally renovated in the structure, in technology, in furniture and also as regards accessibility. Sala Mosaici for the press conferences was tested last year. We are back with the photocalls for photographers within the casino, because the attempts last year were not successful. We were not satisfied, so we're going back inside the casino. A few details more, just to say that we are working day after day, as we are working in the Arsenale and the other mainland headquarters, thanks to the funds provided by the PNRR funds to renovate and make safer and historic buildings, to make more accessible, and to increase the spaces for our activities in the mainland within La Biennale. I want to remember you that the architecture exhibition is underway and that the dance festival is still on, directed by Wayne McGregor. The music festival will start on the 16th of October. Biennale is not just cinema. And the floor now to our director, Alberto Barbera. Thank you, President. Welcome you all present here in the beautiful library of ASAC and all those who are connected with us online. You know, the last week was quite troubled. The announcement of the strike of the actors and of the script, of the scriptwriters has surprised all of us. It was difficult to come to the end of a program that had already been finalized. I must say that, luckily enough, the consequences of this strike that has very good motivations we can agree to, the impact is quite modest on our festival. The only movie we have lost as against what we had planned is the opening movie, a beautiful movie by Luca Guadagnino, who has been postponed. Its commercial release has been postponed to April 2024. The producers, Amazon, MGM, and the international distributors, Warner Bros., have decided to withdraw the film that was replaced by Il Comandante by Edoardo De Angelis. The other American movies we had invited have been confirmed and will be present in the program of the festival. So allow me to thank producers, directors who have decided to confirm their commitment with us and who will be present in the world debut of their movies. A few stars will not be with us. Actors and actresses, members of SAG will not be present. We will have, however, actors and actresses who have worked in productions that are fully independent, and they are numerous in Venice. So we hope the red carpet won't be so empty as somebody has announced in the last few days. It will be a festival fully representative of contemporary cinema. A few figures: the films we have received were 4,061, 2,100 feature films, 1,961 short films. The countries represented in the selection are 54, more or less the same number as we have every year. A few gender figures. The titles directed by male directors proposed in the selection were 2,703, approximately 66% of the total. The female director movies 1,298, approximately 32%, with a small percentage of directors who did not declare a gender, 60 movies, 1.48%. As regards the movies, we have selected 82 feature films, 14 short films, 29 of which are directed by women, with a percentage that amounts to 30%, slightly more than the last few years. We are still far from the gender parity we all hope for. It is a slow process that is, however, going on. Let us start with the program. Let us start with Biennale College Cinema. We have 3 movies developed and produced by Biennale College. L'anno dell'uovo, The Year of the Egg by Claudio Casale. L'Umbre in Sueño, Fire Dream by José Pablo Escamilla. And Arni, a debut film by Dorca Vermes from Hungary. The movies will be screened on the 31st of August, on the 1st and the 2nd of September. The other section we are very proud of is Venice Immersive. The program has already been announced, and you should already know it. Venice Immersive is the first and most important competition dedicated to virtual reality. It takes place on the island of Lazzaretto, which is a reference, a world reference for those who deal with this new technology applied to art and creation. Allow me to thank Michel Riac and Liz Rosenthal for the great job they have done in scouting and selecting the projects. There are a total of 44 from 25 countries, plus 24 works in the non-competitive World Gallery session. 28 projects in competition, 10 projects out of competition as Best of Venice Immersive. The best works already distributed or presented in other events after the latest Venice Film Festival. 6 projects that were developed in Biennale College Cinema VR. And then, as I was saying, 24 worlds selected in the World's Gallery. The other section we have already announced is Venezia Classici, documentaries on cinema. I'm announcing the Venezia Classici part. We have not yet provided the names of the movies. 9 films, 9 documentaries on cinema in alphabetical order. The first is for Bill Douglas, My Best Friend, by Jack Archer, Friend, UK. Then we have a film with the curious title, Le film Pronazzi d'Hitchcock by Daphne Bayweir, a French-American production. Thank you very much. That doesn't say a lot with the title, but it is a documentary on Andy Kaufman by Alex Braverman, US. Landrian by Ernesto Daranas Serrano, a documentary, a Cuban documentary for the greatest documentary director from Cuba, who is not well known in the rest of the world. A work that was fought against by the Castro regime. A few documentaries on Italian cinema. Un'altra Italia possibile is the first, by Il Cinema, by Giuseppe De Santis, by Steve Della Casa, and then a documentary by Michel Gondry, Do It Yourself, François Nemeta, France, a documentary dedicated to Ken Jacobs. Ken Jacobs from Orchard Street to the Museum of Modern Art by Fred Riedel. The second Italian documentary, Dario Argento Panico by Simone Scafidi. And finally, a documentary on Frank Capra, Mr. America by Matthew Wells. And then we have the Orizzonti section. You know, it is divided in two parts, Orizzonti short films and Orizzonti feature films. For short films, you see the list here. They are a lot, 13 short films coming from all over the world. And very often, they help us discover new talents we will see in competition for Orizzonti short films. We have a young female author who won the best short film award last year. We'll tell you later about that. As regards Orizzonti feature films, we have A Cielo Aberto by Mariana Santiago Arriaga, The Children of Guillermo Arriaga, son and daughter of Guillermo Arriaga, who wrote a screenplay many years ago. They have brought on screen today a road movie, three boys who want to take revenge on the lorry driver who killed their father in a car accident. El Paraíso, the third feature film by Enrico Artale. He had debuted in Venice with Terzo Tempo in 2013, and then the second movie, and then he took part in TV series. He's back with this portrait of a 40-year-old man conditioned by a complex relationship with his mother until a Colombian girl arrives who will upset his life. You will discover why. Behind the Mountains, I do not try to tell the original title. Tunisian movie, the third by Mohamed Benatia, a well-known director on the international scene. His first movie got the Lourdes d'Argent at the Berlin Festival with his first movie, and then he took part in the Kanzen, the réalisateur, the Kanzen, the cineast in Cannes, the story of a father who recently came out of prison and who is trying to reveal to his son a strange power he has. The Red Suitcase, a debut film coming from Nepal, a faraway country where cinema is moving its first steps. A nice debut for a young female director, Fidel Devkota, a story of ghosts, referring to the painful past of the civil war that has upset Nepal, but also contemporary themes like the recent migration wave from Nepal to the Gulf countries, looking for jobs there, and the detrimental consequences this has on the families that remained at home. A curious movie, Tatame, by two directors, a director and a female director, Guy Natif, an Israeli director, and Zahra Mir Ebrahimi, who is a well-known Iranian actress who had won an award in Cannes as Best Actress for the movie Holy Spider. Together, they co-direct a movie that narrates a real story of a young judo wrestler from Iran who, during a competition, is asked to withdraw from the competition because she has to fight in the final match against an Israeli champion because of political reasons. You can imagine the story. It is the reconstruction of a real story, as I was saying. Paradise is Burning, the debut film coming from Sweden, another female debut film, the story of three sisters who are a small sister and two adolescents who are running the risk of being separated because of an absent mother and of lurking social services. The Featherweight by Robert Kolodny is a second movie by a director of photography who also worked on important movies with Laura Poitras in All the Beauty and the Bloodshed that won the Golden Lion in Venice last year. This is one of the two movies dealing with boxing we will see in Venice. The story is set in 1964, the story of a former box champion who withdrew from the matches and at 50 decides to go back on the ring to reconquer the title. The first of the three Italian movies we have in competition for Orizzonti, Simone Massi. You should know him, an extraordinary artist in animation. He's the author of the animated theme and posters of the first 4 editions of the film festivals from 2012 to 2016. Some short films of his have received important awards in Italy and abroad. This is the first animation feature film that has required a great work because he uses a special technique, extremely complex. It is an history of Italy seen from below, from a family of farmers during last century, witnessing the different historical events in the latest 100 years. Hesitation Wound by Selman Akar, the second movie by this Turkish director. The first movie was Between Two Dawns, presented in many festivals, awarded in the Festival of Turin last year, 2 years ago. This is the story of a lawyer, a female lawyer, who has to face an ethic and professional dilemma that will involve the destiny of her mother, ill mother, the judge of the trial she's involved in, and a suspected murderer whom she's trying to have acquitted. From Brazil, we have a debut film by 2 young directors, Sem Coração, Heartless, by Nara Normande and Tiao, developed from their short film that got an award in Cannes, in the Cannes Festival in 2014, the story of an adolescent in a small holiday village who is attracted by a girl, a local girl, who is defined as heartless, marginated from the rest of the village. The second Italian movie in Orizzonti is Una sterminata domenica by Alain Parroni, a debut film that will, I hope, be at the center of the debate. Parroni makes a rigorous choice, abandoning traditional narrative models in Italian cinema to tell a story of nihilism and rebellion in the periphery of Rome. It is an almost purely sensory experience, visual and musical experience that aims at becoming the manifesto of a lost generation. From Mongolia, we have the movie of this young female director I was mentioning before, who won the short film competition Orizzonti last year, City of Wind by Dulma Purev Otkir. The story, again, of 2 adolescents, a recurring theme in many of the movies we will see this year in Venice. The exploration of the dreams and desires of these girls and boys, an unexpected analysis of the sexuality of adolescents in a country where these themes are not easily discussed. And there is also a clash between modernity and tradition with a very personal and participated and sensitive look. And then a movie from Hungary, the third movie by Gabor writes, an explanation for everything. One of the movies that will be blamed for not including it in the main competition. I'm telling this to make you curious about it. The third movie by a promising director, a disquieting portrait of Hungary today. We recognize many similarities with other countries in Europe. I'm not saying anything more. I'm not saying anything more because you will discover it. Then a movie by two American brothers, Bill and Turner Ross. They come from the world of documentaries. This is the first fiction film that, however, still maintains a documentary approach in telling the story of a group of girls and boys who, after the end of their high school experience, start for a journey to the sea, coming from a semi-desertic area in the central part of the U.S. They meet a lot of other boys and girls, music, and a description of the American landscapes, something quite typical of on-the-road movies, American on-the-road movies, but with a very personal and original approach. Gasoline Rainbow, the only French film in Orizzonti by Céline Rousset and Attendant la Nuit. It is a genre movie, a film of vampires. You expect everything from a female director, but a vampire movie. It goes beyond this genre. It uses this metaphor to tell about the discomfort in the youth world. I will not add anything else. And then a film coming from North Macedonia, developed in the 8th edition of Biennale College Cinema, a vibrant apologue on the family today in the Balkans, on the value of paternity, of fatherhood, on the difficulty of being gay and being gypsy in that country, in that region. Goran Stolevsky creates this utopic, enlarged family. A name you would not expect in Orizzonti, although he had already won an award in Orizzonti 2 years ago, and then he was 2 times in the main competition in Venice. Shinya Tsukamoto. The title of the movie is Okage. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. Tsukamoto comes back to a theme that is important for him, the consequences of war on human beings. In this case, a soldier who was traumatized by war, a woman forced to become a prostitute to survive, and a child who remained alone and who represents the ray of hope that closes the movie. I thank Tsukamoto for accepting to come in competition in Orizzonti. I thank him very much for this. The last movie in competition for Orizzonti is another debut film, a surprising film. I abuse sometimes. It makes us think of the debut film by Bellocchio, I pugni in tasca, an adolescent of bourgeois family sent to a college, an Islamic college, during the second half of the 1990s. It is the tale of religious integralism, homosexual pulsions, and political tensions. A movie that explains what are the origins, what the origins are of Erdogan's Islamic Turkey, and of the political elites of today. Burning topicality, a very topical movie. Orizzonti Extra is the section we inaugurated 3 years ago, a small section with new titles, debut movies, with an award attributed by the public and sponsored by Armani Beauty. The screenings of Orizzonti Extra will be in the evening at Sala Giardino, the Red Cube, with the presentation with the authors of the movies, and followed by meeting with the director and interpreters, moderated by Chiara Tagliaferri. The movies in competition are 9 this year. Bottaglione by Luana Bairami, a young actress from Kosovo, French naturalized, who lives and works in Paris. She has gone back to her country in Kosovo to shoot this movie set in the 1990s. Two adolescents coming from a faraway village in the region to attend university. Again, another portrait of adolescence, of the hopes and of the betrayed hopes of a generation that has been abandoned after the independence, the newly obtained independence of Kosovo. The film is produced by Eric Toledano and Olivier Nagache, the directors of The Untouchables, a very successful French movie remade in many countries of the world. Forever, Forever by Anna, one of the two movies produced this year, completed this year in Ukraine, a debut film by Anna Buryakova. It was shot before the beginning of the war, and it has been completed only recently with great difficulties. Another portrait of a young woman in a school context, again, a theme we will see very often this year. And this is understandable because the adolescents, young girls and boys, were hardly hit by the pandemic. It is maybe a chance, but might not be a chance. From Argentina, we get a film by a female director, Daniela Goggi, with Italian origins. The fourth long feature film, her fourth feature film, the kidnapping of an entrepreneur after the coming back of democracy in 1985, when the members of the repressive services of police and the army of the generals were still operating in hiding, protected by the power. We find again situations and themes we have seen in two movies, in two Argentinian movies in Venice, Argentina 1985 by Santiago Mitre, and Il Clan by Pablo Trapero. The other film in competition for Orizzonti Extra, dealing with boxing, the debut movie of Jack Houston, a well-known actor. The Day of the Fight is the title, his first film as a director. The last 24 hours of a boxer, a former champion who left the ring because of an accident, who decides to go back to fighting to regain the title he had lost, well aware of the consequences this decision might cause. A pilgrimage to come to terms with his past, with the people he had in his life, his father with Alzheimer, his divorced wife, a friend of his who had become a priest, and his beloved daughter. A film that is full of quotations from the different movies on boxing of the American cinema, with a great mastery and a great emotional involvement. In the Land of Saints and Sinners by Rob Lawrence is the third feature film of this American director. Irish production, shot in Ireland. He was a collaborator of Clint Eastwood's. Rob Lawrence is setting this story in a remote Irish village at the time of civil war, with the attempt with bombings by terrorists. A ruthless killer deciding to abandon his profession, looking for redemption after a life of sins. I have anticipated the only Italian title participating in the Orizzonti Extra competition, the debut movie by Micaela Ramazzotti, one of the best Italian actresses, who reveals a great mastery in telling the story of a young girl trying to make a career in cinema as a makeup artist, but she had to come to terms with a dysfunctional family. She has learned a lot from two movies she has taken part in as a protagonist, La Pazza Gioia by Paolo Virzi and Vivere by Francesca Archibugi, and then you will understand why I mentioned these two movies. Pet Shop Boys, but first movie by Olmo Schnabel, with an important cast. Jack Iver, Dario Yazbek, the brother of Garcia Benal, William Dafoe, Emmanuel Seigner, Peter Sarsgaard. A very original movie on two friends who have a very different characters. Alejandro running away from his Mexican family, and a shy Jack who has to face extraordinary experiences that will upset his life. Stolen by Karan Taipal is a debut film, as an Indian debut film. The last day before closing the program, we look on the platform where the movies are loaded. We see the last film we have to see, and we find a surprising piece of work. This happens quite often when selecting movies. And this is one of the most joyful moments in our work. We didn't know anything about this movie. It is a surprising piece of work. It starts as a social drama on the kidnapping of newborn babies with a racket that gives these babies to the families who can pay for them. But the movie develops in an action thriller, breathtaking action thriller, with chases and lynchings built with a surprising level of tension. The last movie in competition for Orizzonti Extra, L'Homme d'Argile from France by Anaïs Tellen, the debut in directing of a young Belgian actress who works in France. It will certainly provide some surprises, partially sexual erotic movie on the myth of Golem in a romantic approach with some aspects of social critique. Somebody mentioned Ritratto Ovale, Oval Portrait by Edgar Allan Poe. A very good performance of the interpreters, Emmanuel De Vos and Raphael Thierry. Out of competition, there is a special screening, a documentary co-produced by Canal Plus and Rai Cultura, La parte del leone, una storia della mostra, an historic overview of stock material and interviews made with protagonists of cinema of the past and of the present. This is our choice to celebrate the 80th edition of the Venice Film Festival. The documentary will then be screened, will be broadcast on the two networks, but it will be screened in the first premiere on the 2nd of September, Saturday, the 2nd of September. Out of competition, again. Out of competition, we have series. For some time, we have been devoting part of our program to TV series, two this year. The first is D'Argent et de Sang, written and produced by Xavier Giannoli, a director we know very well, as he has been in competition 2 times in Venice and many times in Cannes. This is the showrun of the series of 12 episodes, 50 minutes each. We will see the 12 of them in a kind of marathon, subdivided in 2 parts. But the last day, they will be screened altogether, 10 hours of screening. The episodes were directed by Giannoli and Frédéric Janson, with Vincent Landon interpreting the role of a magistrate, entrusted in 2008 the responsibility for a new special corps to contrast tax frauds, tax fraud against the TV VAT tax. A very famous robbery by a group of French gangsters trying to evade VAT with fake companies who managed to subtract more than 300 million euros to the tax authority. The story is told as a thriller, and we were really fascinated by it. The second series comes from Bosnia-Herzegovina, signed by 2 showrunners, Jasmila Zvanic and Damiri Ibrahimovic, who have written and produced the series. We will just see 2 episodes of this series. At the center of the series, with 6 episodes, is the figure of a female magistrate having to face a story of bullying and suicide involving her son. A very good performance by the protagonist, Jasna Duricic, who also interpreted Quo Vadis by Jasmila Banic, that was in competition in Venice and that got many awards in the festivals around the world. Out of competition, non-fiction for documentaries. We start with Amor by Virginia Eleutheri Serpieri, a debut film by this young artist from Rome. It is part of those movies that use cinema to make up for a private breakout, the drama of a depressed mother, the aquatic story of Rome, and the fantastic mythology of Amor planet are transformed into a visual poem, a highly suggestive visual poem. Frente a Guernica by Ervant Janikian, with the wife of with his wife, is the new movie prepared by Museo Sofia Reina of Madrid that has asked Janikian to describe the collection of material relating to this famous painting by Picasso. We are screening in Venice the longer version, director's cut, realized for the museum in Madrid. From Germany, we have a documentary, Hollywood Gate. The title doesn't explain the content of the documentary. The director has an Egyptian origin, Ibrahim Nashat. After the abandoning of Afghanistan by the Americans and the coming in power of the Taliban, he managed to be accredited with the new government of the Taliban, who allowed him to spend a whole year following the new commander of the air forces, of the Taliban air forces in Afghanistan, only shooting what he was allowed to shoot until the military parade that 1 year later celebrated the first anniversary of the Taliban revolution. What he shoots is so disquieting that it is really worth seeing. Hollywood Gate is referring to the inscription on the American hangar where the American Air Forces were hosted before they left the country. Neo Sora, the son of Ruichi Sakamoto, has realized this documentary, and which is the shooting, the last solo piano concert of the father of the director, the last will, a testament and a legacy, a spiritual legacy for future generations of this great artist. He's alone in the studio in front of a piano, and he's performing some of his compositions for cinema, the most famous pieces he composed for cinema. It is an extraordinary documentary. I'm still moved if thinking of it. Another Italian documentary by Giorgio Verdelli, Enzo Iannacci Vengo Anch'io. Verdelli is specialized in creating documentaries on Italian artists. He was in Venice with documentaries on Enzo Bosso and Paolo Conte. Enzo Iannacci was a genius, a songwriter of the 1960s, 1970s in Italy. This movie has incredible stock material that allow us to rediscover or discover, if you were not lucky enough to follow his works, his freaky, genial approach to music. The last documentary out of competition is the latest documentary by Fred Wiseman, Menu Plaisir Les Trois Gros. Fred Wiseman is 93 years old. He has made this documentary 4 hours long, and it is an incredible journey in the universe, in the mysterious universe that is behind the stage of one of the most famous restaurants in France, Les Trois Gros. A journey you cannot abandon because it is describing everything that is behind the creation, the choice of raw materials, the creation of new plates. If you love cooking and restoration, this is an extraordinary journey for you. Another section, fiction, the closing film is La Sociedad de la Nieve by J.A. Bayona, a Spanish production for Netflix, telling a famous story, the story of the airplane that fell on the mountains dividing Argentina and Chile, with the survivors who had to remain for 2 months in extreme conditions. A survival movie, extremely fascinating, with a group of very good young artists. Coup de Chance, the new movie by Woody Allen, shot in France with a French cast in French. But it is a Woody Allen movie, coming back to the themes he prefers, chance, the role of chance in our lives. It makes us think of Match Point, one of his masterpieces. Semi-serious reflection and melancholical reflection on the role of chance in our life. And then we have Wes Anderson, who has transferred on the screen some tales of an extraordinary writer, Roald Dahl, The Chocolate Factory. These are short stories. The wonderful story of Henry Sugar, the longest of these short films, drawing inspiration from Dahl's stories. A typical stylistic universe of Anderson meets the surreal stories of this writer and creates this masterpiece, a small masterpiece. I'm saying small because it is only 40 minutes long, but it is Wes Anderson in its purest state. Luca Barbareschi, The Penitent, the title of one of the latest plays for theater by David Mamet. Luca Barbareschi translated the text and brought it in the Italian theaters. Now he has realized this version for cinema. He interprets as the protagonist an American psychoanalyst who is the victim of an aggression campaign started on the social media after a patient of his made a killing in a school. The film is facing topical themes with the typical polemic approach of the author, but with the great depth as the text by Mamet requires. L'Ordine del Tempo, Out of Competition, is the latest movie by Liliana Cavani, who celebrated a 90th anniversary this year. She will be awarded the Golden Lion for a lifetime achievement. It draws inspiration from an essay with the same name by Carlo Rovelli. It is not a documentary. It is not an essay. It is a fiction movie with the story set in 24 hours in a villa on the sea with a group of friends with the threat of a catastrophic event for our planet. You will discover the movie. Again, out of competition, the new movie by Alix Delaporte, Vivant. Alix Delaporte was in competition in Venice in 2014 with Le Dernier Coup de Marteau, The Last Hammer Blow. This is a collective movie on a group of assault editors of a TV channel on reportage, on topical reportage, a great performance of the actors with Roshti Zem, who is also performing a wonderful ballet on the music of the Bolero by Ravel, who is really worth the whole movie. Welcome to Paradise, a short film by Leonardo Di Costanzi, 24 minutes, realized with the students of Scuola di Cinema di Bobbio, Cinema School of Bobbio, directed by Marco Bellocchio. They produce a short film every year with the students of the course, covering the different technical roles. Dali by Quentin Dupieux is the new movie of a director, of a cult director. He was in Venice a few years ago. He was many times in Cannes. He surprises us and entertains us with his surreal works, with his humorism. And this time he jokes on the limitless narcissism of artists, in this case, Salvador Dali, interpreted by 4 different actors who perform the role depending on the scenes. A very funny movie, very short also, 75 minutes. The Cane Mutiny Court Martial by William Friedkin, the version for cinema of a theater play that is very famous in the States, not so famous in Europe, brought on stage by many actors and directors for theater, at least another 2 versions for cinema. The first in 1955 by Edward Dmytryk with Humphrey Bogart, and the second in 1988 directed by Robert Altman for Showtime with Michael Murphy in the main role. We have Kiefer Sutherland this time. Showtime is the producer, directed by William Friedkin, who has directed this movie sitting on a wheelchair because of his problems. I was on set and I saw that the troupe had an extraordinary relationship of admiration for the director. Making of by Cédric Kahn. Cédric Kahn is a French author who is not yet valorized as he should be. His second film this year, his first movie had opened the Kanzen in Cannes, and it was received with a great success. This is a kind of effetto notte, day of night by Truffaut, the story of a movie, of a film in our time, with union problems and conflicts. One of the most beautiful recent movies on the fascination and the difficulty of making films today. Agro Drift, difficult to describe with words. You know Harmony Korine. He's the cinema maker, the most anarchical, restless cinema maker in America. He was many times in Venice, also in competition, both loved and hated. I do not know how to describe this movie, if not by saying that Korine is destroying all barriers between the role of a cinema maker and an artist. He's also a painter, a well-known painter. This is not a movie. This is a contemporary artwork. It might be in one of the pavilions of the Biennale Arte exhibition, but it is also perfectly suited to this film festival. You will discover this yourself. Hitman, the latest movie by Richard Linklater, a director who had great fun, and also we had great fun in watching the movie. It is staging an American psychologist who is working undercover for the American police, disguised as a killer. Who has to kill somebody. He disguises himself in a different way every time in order to have the committants arrested before they obtain their result. Glenn Power, the protagonist, who performs the role of the psychologist, is irresistible. And then the latest movie by Roman Polanski, a long work to complete it. It finally reaches Venice, the palace. His previous movies had won the jury award, great jury award in Venice. This movie was written with his old friend and colleague at the cinema school, Jerzy Skolimowski. The story has been anticipated by the magazines in the last few months. It is one day of preparation of the latest New Year's Eve in the year 2000 in a luxury hotel in the Swiss Alps with grotesque and surreal characters trying to satirize a humanity made of individuals who are unaware of their lack of humanity and social commitment. The last out-of-competition movie this year is a tribute to Pema Tseden, who is the greatest author in Tibetan cinema, a director, playwright, scriptwriter, who died a few days after completing this movie. He was 3 times in competition in Orizzonti. He also got an award with one of his previous movies. He disappeared on the 8th of May, and we thought it was compulsory for us to tribute him an homage. We have come now to the most important part of this conference, Venezia 80 competition. Many movies, 23 films, 23 like last year. I didn't manage to renounce to any of the movies that most convinced me. They are numerous, but they are all extraordinary. Out of these 23 movies, 15 are made by directors participating to the competition for the first time. The first is Comandante. We have decided to choose to open the film festival after the withdrawal of the movie by Guadagnino. This movie is a great production effort by Edoardo De Angelis with Pierfrancesco Favino, a great interpreter. The other movies, Bastarden, coming from Denmark. The director was Golden Bear in Berlin and an Academy candidate in 2013 with Royal Affair. He had never been in Venice. He collaborates again with one of the best Danish actors, known also internationally, Mads Mikkelsen, who interprets a former officer of the Danish army who, in the mid 18th century, tries to colonize the deserted heathland in Jutland, only inhabited by Rom and gangsters. Dogman by Luc Besson. I hope this movie that has convinced us will also convince those spectators and critics who think that Luc Besson can only direct action movies. This is much more than that. I'm not telling you anything about the plot. It is really surprising. It is a monument to an extraordinary Australian actor, Caleb Landry Jones, who make a performance that will become memorable. You will discover this very soon. Bonello had never been in competition in Venice. The title of the movie is La Bête. Léa Seydoux and George Mackay are the interpreters. Freely in referring to a tale by Henry James, a novel by Henry James, set in the future where emotions are a threat, and the protagonist, Léa Seydoux, decides to entrust to a company using artificial intelligence to allow individuals to re-experience their past lives, freeing them from their emotions. An extremely topical movie. Hors Saison by Stéphane Brisé. He was in competition in Venice already. For his 10th movie, he decides to abandon the comfort zone that has characterized his works with a social theme. He's telling of a couple meeting again by chance 15 years after their separation. He's a successful actor in a situation of crisis because he has rejected the possibility of going to theater, Guillaume Canet. She's a piano player, a pianist, Alba Rohrwacher, who lives in an isolated village on the North Sea. She had never overcome the trauma of her separation. Great performances, great formal rigor, and a great emotional intensity by the director. Enea by Pietro Castellitto is the second movie, really much expected. He really surprised us with this first movie. This is even more ambitious as a movie in terms of production as well. His first movie was I Predatori. He's interpreting the film together with many actors. You see the list of them, many of his relatives. We find the themes of his cinema. It is the story of Rome, periphery of Rome, a story of problematic families, young entrepreneurs, ruthless young entrepreneurs, drug smugglers, and DJs that are colluded with mafia. Great ugliness, a kind of great ugliness young people can perfectly recognize with. Maestro by Bradley Cooper. The news had circulated of this movie being in Venice, and it is so. This is the second work as a director by Bradley Cooper after A Star is Born, in competition this time. It is the biography of an extraordinary genius, Leonard Bernstein. But Bradley Cooper is interested in only one aspect of his multifaceted life and activity as an artist. That is to say, the relationship with his wife, whom he loved despite their tormented love story. The wife is Carey Mulligan, and Bradley Cooper is Leonard Bernstein in this film. Again in Venice, Sofia Coppola, coming back to Venice after many years, with Priscilla is the title of the film. It is the attempt to tell the real story of the young wife of Elvis Presley, whom he met in Berlin when he was already famous, when he was serving in the American base in Germany. Something remarkable is that this movie is a co-production of the Apartment, together with Coppola's production house. And The Apartment with this movie is showing its determination to enter the international production stage. Finalmente l'Alba by Saverio Costanzo, another anticipated movie. Saverio Costanzo comes back to cinema after the international success of the first series of L'Amica Geniale he directed. This is the second most important productive investment in cinema for Italy this year. Produced by Wildside by Mario Giannani, again trying to build and cement his production company, a film with a great cast, Italians and Americans, the story of the loss of innocence of a young girl who finds herself one day and one night in the golden world of Cinecittà of the 1950s, a fascinating but cynic and cruel world. The reconstruction of the time is great. You will discover this. Lubo by Giorgio Diritti. It was a discovery. I'm not a great fan of Giorgio Diritti, but I must admit this. Diritti really not only surprised me, but also convinced me with an extraordinary film, the real story of Lubo Moser, a young Yenish, one of the three ethnic groups of the Gypsies of a German origin that lived in Switzerland in the 1930s, persecuted by the Germans, but also by the Swiss, because there was a partly governmental program that authorized the kidnapping of the children of the Yanish to cancel the problem of nomadism in Switzerland. These children were sent to religious institutions. They were taken away from their parents, who lost contact with their children. The children were given to Swiss families, treated like little slaves, young slaves, forced to sleep with the animals they had to take care of. A terrible story. The Swiss government admitted the responsibility for only lately, and they never paid compensations to the families of the gypsies. A surprising movie, a very long movie, 3 hours, full of unexpected events I will not tell you about. It is like a feuilleton full of pain and social denunciations. Ava DuVernay, for the first time in competition, a Black American director, well known in the US, less known in Europe. The title of the film is Origin, taken from an essay of the Pulitzer Prize winner Isabel Wilkerson. It sold many copies in the US in 2020, and it changed forever the discussion on racism in the American society in the US. The film, an ambitious film that mixes its nature of an essay as to the style of a biography to discuss Isabel Wilkerson's thesis stating that racism is based in the divisions that are typical of each society and based on the system of castes that prevent the movements among different castes between blacks and whites, for example. Castes, therefore, are one of the major causes of social injustice we have to come to terms with. The Killer by David Fincher, The Killer by David Fincher, is another widely expected movie produced by Netflix. Fincher had not been in Venice after Fight Club. It was in Venice in 1999 with my first direction. It was not well received in Venice, although it became a cult movie later. It was too disconcerting, too surprising for the time. It divided both the audience and the critics. This is a thriller. I am not telling you anything about the plot. I will just add that it is taken from a graphic novel, a French graphic novel by Jacquemont and Magds. The director wanted to bring it on screen, and he has done so with a couple of important interpreters, Michael Fassbender and Tilda Swinton. Memory by Michel Franco. He was 2 times in competition in Venice. This is the 3rd time. This is an American independent production set in New York. New York is a 3rd character, together with the 2 main characters, Jessica Chastain and Peter Sarsgaard. We know nothing about the movie. You do not find anything on this movie on the web. He kept everything secret. You will discover it when you see it. Io Capitano is another Italian movie in competition by Matteo Garrone. Much discussed, the contemporary odyssey of 2 young African girls starting from Dakar, following the dream of reaching Europe, and they are forced instead to discover the difficulties in the desert, the tension centers in Libya, and the dangers in crossing the Mediterranean on these poor ships. Garrone is abandoning his Baroque style and chooses instead a very simple and direct style of narration, taking the point of view of the 2 protagonists. And then a surprise. It was a surprise for us when we found it on our platform. Nobody knows that Amaguchi, after winning the Academy Award with Drive My Car, was working on a new project. If It Does Not Exist is the title of the film. As against Drive My Car, that was a film of 3 hours. This is just 1 hour and 46 minutes and tells of a company in Tokyo that is trying to build a luxury camping resort in a village in the mountain, endangering the environmental balance and has to clash against the opposition of the local population. For us, it was love at first sight. The Green Border, a Polish movie by Agnieszka Holland, another movie we know nothing about. It was shot in semi-hiding because the theme is unfriendly to the Polish government. It describes a dramatic, surprising story of illegal immigrants eluded by the Belarusian authorities, that they can enter Europe through the Polish border, and when they get there instead, they are rejected by the Polish police. They are sent back to Belarus and again sent back to Poland in this endless carousel that has cost the life of thousands of people, causing suffering and pain with the total indifference of the rest of Europe. The Theory von Allem is a debut film. It can be considered as a debut film because Tim Kroger had only made another movie that was a movie made for the School of Cinema of Berlin. It was presented in Venice last 7 years ago. This movie instead will be distributed, commercially distributed. It is one of the first movies we have seen in January this year, and we were conquered by the ambition of this director, creating a purely cinematic imagination with different quotation going from Wells to Fassbinder to Ulmer, Lang, Siodmak, Hitchcock, without forgetting the Italian B-movies of the 1970s. This film is a Gothic nightmare, a metaphysical melodrama full of science fiction, digging under the mountain of classical German cinema to create a new mythology for contemporary cinema. You will tell us whether we were wrong. It is a really fascinating film. You do not understand everything, but it is really fascinating. Poor Things by Yorgos Lanthimos, widely announced in the previous months, coming back of Lanthimos to Venice, who won an award with this previous movie. This is a film that works with fantasy and a great richness, visual richness, the Gothic cinema themes. The interpreter, Emma Stone, who will not be with us because of the strike, she is really unchanged. She's like a Frankenstein, a female Frankenstein, a young woman brought back to life by a crazy, genial scientist, interpreted by William Dafoe. She runs away from her creator, and a lawyer falls in love with her. And she starts a journey across the continents, sexually voracious, which is one of the unexpected aspects of this movie. A breath of fresh air as against the conformity we find in contemporary cinema. El Conde by Pablo Larraín, another return of an author who has been in Venice many times. You know everything about the movie. A Baroque version of the vampire genre with Pinochet, who is not dead really, who wakes up after the funeral to go on sucking the blood, both metaphorically and in reality, of his fellow citizens, a harsh political attack to his country that wasn't able to come to terms with its past, and that did not send the dictator to a trial. The new film by Michael Mann, who has been absent from the festivals for many years, he has worked to this project Ferrari. He mentioned this when he chaired the jury in Venice in 2012. He went to Maranello on that occasion to meet the management of the Ferrari plant. This project has been completed. The film focuses on a brief period, the crucial years of the crisis of this company, the years of the tragic accident that will stop the Mille Miglia competition, and telling the story of the family crisis of Ferrari and his wife, with many human nuances. Allow me to add that only hardly did a foreign director recreate the situation of Italy in those years. Adagio by Stefano Sollima is the last Italian movie in competition. Sollima comes from a series of successes with action movies and TV series that have become an international point of reference. Sollima is still waiting for the recognition of the role he deserves in the important Italian cinema, Italian author cinema. I think Adagio is a real breakthrough in this sense. It is a dystopic film on a city of Rome surrounded by fires looming on the capital. The film is like a cathedral celebrating the funeral of the characters and the themes that have made Romanzo Criminale and Suburra two cult series, telling about this genre series, contemporary Italy, telling about this type of Italy better than any other kind of cinema. Another Polish film in competition, unfriendly to the government again, realized by Malgorzata Szumowska and Michael Englert, The Woman of. It tells the story, the real story, for most of it, of a transsexual person who marries and decides instead he is a woman, she is a woman, and makes this step at the end of his life after fighting against bureaucracy and the hostility of most people around her. Poland is one of the most transphobic countries in Europe, but this is not a militant film. It is a kind of melodrama stressing feelings, frustrations, desires of those who would like to have their rights recognized. The protagonist is a real transsexual actress. The last filming competition is Holly by Fian Troch, who had won the award as best film in Orizzonte in 2016, and the jury had been long-sighted on that occasion because Troch is coming back with an extremely mature film facing the theme of discomfort in adolescence, a girl who has a strange power, special power. I won't tell you more. I'm not telling you more about a film that is playing with the codes of horror movies, although in the end it is a love movie. So we have come to the end of this conference. I wasn't quite short. I hope you are curious about the program. Allow me, however, to express my gratitude. I want to thank the American productions and the American directors who have decided to be here in Venice. Allow me to thank President Roberto Cicutto, whose support and collaboration has enabled me to work in full autonomy. I want to thank the director, the general manager of Biennale, Andrea Del Mercato, a great organizer who's leading an extraordinary team of technicians, stage designers. We are being admired and complimented by all the participants who discover how the Venice Film Festival can be efficient. I want to thank Ufficio Cinema, the cinema office, people working very hard and with great love for the sector. I want to thank my assistant, Angela Savoldi, who is here with me, without whom I couldn't do what I'm doing. She's doing a lot of what I should do myself. She is relieving part of the burden I have to bear. I want to thank the whole team, 14 people of the selection team, helping me to see these 4,000 movies we receive every year in Venice. I want to thank Pascal Dio, responsible for the Venice Production Bridge, a successful initiative we have in Venice, our small co-production market. I want to thank Savina Neirotti, chairing the Biennale College Cinema. I have already thanked Michel Reillac and Liz Rosenthal for Venice Immersive, and Alessandra Speciale, guiding Final Cut in Venice. Special collaborators. And finally, I want to thank Paolo Lughi, our head of the press office, and all those whom I have not mentioned, but I have all of them in my heart. Thank you all, and see you all in Venice. Allow me to thank Barbera, the institutions, the Ministry for Culture, the City of Venice, represented today here by Councillor Roger Pea, the Superintendency for Archaeology, Fine Arts and Landscape of Venice and the Lagoon, and all those who contribute to the success of the Venice Film Festival. Our sponsors for the 8th edition of this film festival, main sponsor Campari, Cartier, MasterCard and Armani Beauty, Vivendi, Lexus, UPS, Chandon, Repower, Telios, Major Events Media, Canon, Radio Italia. RAI, main and host broadcaster of the film festival and media partner of La Biennale di Venezia. I want to thank Alberto Barbera again and his staff, all those who are part of the team, not only of the cinema sector, all those who accept everything I ask of them, besides exceeding their ordinary tasks. We close this press conference here for the presentation of the 80th edition of the Venice Film Festival. Do not forget the other festivals and exhibitions of the La Biennale di Venezia.